Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of Coffee with Kira. Joining me for coffee today is Rachel Belcourt, an elementary school vice principal. Today is a special episode because not only will we chat about her career, but we'll switch roles and she'll chat with me about my podcast. I'm really looking forward to being on the other side of the conversation, so see you inside. Hey Rachel, thank you for joining me for coffee this afternoon.
Hi, Kara. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I'm having sweet tea to drink. What are you having to drink?
I have it. Coffee. I have an afternoon coffee nearly every day. So this is
How's your day been so far?
good. I just had our second child, so my husband's out giving him a walk right now, so we can have a quiet house.
Nice. Yeah, I had actually another podcast earlier, so
wow.
I've just been doing school all day.
Look at you. Awesome.
Well, I heard you're a principal, but can you explain what your job is and where you work and what grades you work with?
Yes, of course. So I'm actually an assistant principal for an elementary school in Dallas ISD. So I am just one of two administrators on our school campus. We serve grades pre-K 3 to 5th grade. It's just my principal and myself that are the school administrators.
Okay. How long have you been doing that?
Yes, I've been there for 4 years. So wow. I've only had one school leadership role, and that was just this one as assistant principal.
Have you been other teachers for different grades though?
Yes. So I started in Teach for America. I was a 7th grade. Yeah, I did that program through, I was in Memphis actually through TFA, and I did that for 2 years, and I taught 7th grade language arts. And then I taught for 1 year, 10th grade American literature in the South Side of Chicago. And then my husband's job, Anthony, as you know, moved us here. And when we came to Dallas, I kind of thought I was going to look for something else, not in the teaching world, but I couldn't get away from it. So I started teaching 7th grade language arts again in Dallas at J.L. Long Middle School. And then I became the reading instructional coach there. And then I got the school leadership role. So that's kind of the journey to where I am now.
Okay. Do you prefer like grade teaching or a principal, and how is it different?
Yeah, good question. So I think there is definitely, I love both for different reasons. I think what I miss most about the classroom is that you get to interact with students much more closely, where I students more for the discipline reasons or because of some sort of crisis that the family's going through, or so it's just a different type of involvement with students. So I love what I do because I still get to interact with kids, but it's just on a different level.
Yeah. What does a typical day look like for an assistant principal?
Yes, I think this is probably why I love my job because of this reason, because there's not one single day that's the same. Every day, honestly, the only thing that's the same about my job is the morning arrival. We have a very streamlined process, especially now with COVID. Yeah. We have a very specific way that it runs. And then the dismissal process, those are really the only two in our lunch procedures. But besides those things, like the day-to-day operations, that's really the only consistent. Everything else is very different each day. So.
Okay. What different tasks do you do differently? Even what do you?
So I would say probably I could have a full day of just meetings back to back with either with teachers or with my principal or other school leaders that come to our campus. And sometimes that can take up a whole day. But then there's other days where we call them more crisis situations, where it's some sort of, whether it's a student discipline thing, or oftentimes it's just, we have really little ones on our campus, and it takes them a while to adjust to school. And some have a hard time controlling how they feel. And so it's just a lot of managing emotions, and that can take a whole day too. So it's just it just fluctuates on day to day. So
Yeah. So for your job, you need to be able to take care of
yes, flexibility is key for sure.
Well, I know obviously you get the summer off. You're still working on plans and stuff, but throughout the school year, do you get much time for hobbies? And if so, what are some of yours?
You know, Anthony just gave me a hard time the other day because he was like, "You need to have some hobbies." I was like, "You're right," because you know him. He has plenty of hobbies, and I think that a part of it is that I am so emotionally spent by the end of the day, and I would say that's also probably the hardest part too. Is there's like a lot of emotional stress, especially when you're trying to problem solve with families through something that's really hard that they're going through, or a student that's really hard to manage, and you feel like you've exhausted a lot of things and you're trying to just meet each day with a new perspective. And sometimes it's just really tiring. And so by the end of the day, probably I would say my hobby is making dinner. I love cooking. So I try to cook new recipes often, but
exciting.
That's about it. I don't really have anything like, jujitsu per se. So.
Yep. Or basketball.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. What's your best work memory?
I think about 3 years ago, we had something called Career Day, and it's really sad because we haven't been able. Career Day is always in March, so we had to cancel last year's. Cancel. I'm sure we won't have one this year either, but Career Day is a special day. Yes, and as you know from your podcast, just learning about people's professions.
Yeah.
Cool experience for kids, especially at such a formative age. So just know there's so many options out there, but I think the coolest part was we had a fire truck with firefighters and I'm forgetting what the name of it is, but actual police officers on horseback, and they came to our playground and surprised all of our students with it, and they were
that's cool.
And like the little ones were just overjoyed with it. So that was a special memory that I have from that day.
Do you have any advice for anyone who's interested in pursuing your field of work?
Yes. So one of my, I think, most important things that I learned from my grad school experience at SMU, my favorite professor, she taught me this norm that I try to live by, and it's really helped in my profession, and that's assuming best intent. And I think if you assume best intent in your coworkers and the people that you with your team that surrounds you, you can just have a different perspective on how to manage conflict or problem solve things that are challenging. And so assuming best intent is something that I would pass along.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I know you're interested in learning a bit about starting your own podcast and hearing about mine. So do you want to get into that?
Yes, of course. Okay. So I, Kira, am just so curious because I would love to just know for myself, how did you start thinking about a podcast, and like what brought you to where you are now? How did you begin?
Well, for the past few years, I've always been interested in possibly starting my own TV show or podcast or something along those lines, but I never really started one. And then at the beginning of the school year, I needed to choose an elective. And since I don't go to school, it's a way for me to talk in front of people. And so my mom offered this idea, actually, my mom and dad. And at first, it was kind of like a task that I had to check off. But like as I've done more and more, it's become more my thing, and I really enjoy doing it.
Awesome. That's so great. So what kind of elective does it like qualify for you?
I believe it's like photography, or not photography, like
something in like the media, probably.
Yeah. Not exactly sure.
Yeah. Well, hey, you're doing like production, all of the editing. Yeah, I can imagine. You're probably doing a lot Work than like a regular elective. Good for you.
I mean, I never have to go up on stage at a school, so.
Yeah, hey, there you go. This is great practice. But what has been an unexpected challenge of starting your own podcast?
One of the unexpected challenges is sometimes I get so like into the conversation that I forget I have to be the host. And so, yeah.
I think I'd have the same problem.
Yeah.
You just want to continue the convo.
So interesting, then I'm like, oh yeah, I have to actually ask a question now.
Yeah, on to the next in a way, right?
Yeah. And the camera takes a lot of your personality away, so I've had to figure out how to be bigger than what I typically am. Still working on that, but
that is really wise. That's great advice. Yeah, you're right, because you don't get that like interpersonal connection if you were actually like
kind of
Right. That makes sense. What do you enjoy most about it?
People say that they joke that I never actually drink coffee on the show, but drinking coffee with someone or going out to coffee in my family it's meeting up with people and getting to know about them and learning about their life. And so I think my favorite part of it is just getting to reconnect with people. Like some of them are my old babysitters that I haven't seen in 10 years. And so just like talking to them again, and obviously learning about all these cool jobs. When you think of like an engineer, you just think of an engineer. And now I've learned there's like 100 types of engineers, and there's each grade for a teacher. So just getting to learn more about each of the different jobs is really cool too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think it's really what you're doing is important, because similarly to like a career day, we don't create those kind of conversations or spaces really. We just kind of say, when you're ready to go to college, what do you want to
and there's like
without really having a lot of conversations about options out there. So it's great. Do you have any upcoming guests that you're really excited about, or something that you're really looking forward to next with your podcast?
I'm going to be chatting with a beekeeper very shortly, and I don't like when you think of jobs, I don't always think of a beekeeper. So it'll be interesting to hear about that. And just to keep getting better at talking on camera and keep it going.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're doing a great job, and I really appreciate you having me today, and as the host too. So thanks.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Well, I've really enjoyed talking to you.
Me too. Thanks.
Thank you for coming.
Yes. Cheers. Salute.
Salute. Bye.